So, what happens when a private text message between two of the world's most powerful leaders suddenly gets leaked for the whole world to see? Well, we're about to dive into a major diplomatic showdown between Donald Trump and Emmanuel Macron. It's a wild story about bruised egos, massive threats, and, believe it or not, some very, very expensive wine. Okay, take a look at this. This isn't some official press release. This is a private message from the president of France, basically trying to smooth things over with the US president, even suggesting dinner in Paris. This is the kind of back-channel chat that's supposed to stay completely private. But of course, that is not what happened here. And that brings us to the big question, right? Why on earth would a president leak a private, friendly-ish message from a major ally? To figure that out, we've got to rewind a little bit and get to the real source of all this tension. Let's be super clear about something. This is not normal at all. In the world of diplomacy, trust is pretty much the only currency that matters. Leaders have to be able to speak their minds without worrying that their private words are going to be used as a public weapon. Leaking a text like this, it just completely shatters that trust. So what caused this whole meltdown? Well, it all kicked off with an invitation that was followed by a very firm rejection. The whole fight is centered on this new, pretty controversial global group that President Trump was trying to build. The idea was called the Board of Peace. Now, at first, it was pitched as a way to manage the reconstruction of Gaza, but the real vision was way bigger. The long-term plan was to create a permanent, powerful club that would basically be an alternative to the United Nations, which Trump often saw as inefficient. And when you put the two side by side, the differences are, well, they're stark. The UN is built around this idea of broad global agreement. But the Board of Peace, it was designed to be an exclusive, elite club. And membership wasn't about geography or global balance. It was literally about money. You had to pony up $1 billion for a permanent seat. It was a pay-to-play system. So President Macron gets this invitation, and he formally rejects it. France's reasoning was pretty straightforward. For one, it completely undermined the UN, where France, has a very powerful permanent seat. They also argued it had no legal framework, would just solidify US dominance, and would basically create a world of haves and have-nots. For President Trump, this wasn't just a policy disagreement. This felt like a personal snub. And his response was fast, and it was aimed right at the heart of French culture and its economy. He decided to turn one of their most famous exports into a weapon. 200%. That was the tariffs Trump threatened to slap on all French wine and champagne coming into the United States. I mean, we're not talking 10% or even 25%. 200%. That is a number designed to cause absolute chaos. And to see what that actually looks like, well, it means the price of French wine for American consumers, who are the biggest market in the world, would triple instantly. That $30 bottle you like, it's now a $90 bottle, just like that. It's a total economic gut punch.
So you gotta ask, why wine? It wasn't random. It was a calculated, strategic move. Wine is this deeply symbolic product. It's central to French identity. It's also a hugely sensitive industry politically. Trump knew that by targeting wine, he'd get massive media coverage and put incredible pressure on Macron back home.
But here's the thing. If the goal was to bully Macron into a corner and isolate him, the plan completely backfired. The threat didn't just worry Paris, it set off alarm bells across the entire continent. The European Union immediately closed ranks. Brussels sent a crystal clear message. France is not alone. A tariff on French wine is a tariff on all of us. This whole thing had just escalated from a diplomatic squabble to a massive trade standoff. And let me tell you, Europe was not bluffing. The EU drew up a list of counter tariffs targeting $108 billion worth of American goods. So yeah, this thing went from zero to a potential multi-billion-dollar trade war incredibly fast. So, with the whole world watching, Macron takes the stage at the Davos summit in Switzerland. And in his speech, he never once says Trump's name. But he doesn't have to. He delivers this powerful, thinly veiled takedown of his whole approach, drawing a line in the sand between global cooperation and what he called brute force and bullying. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. What does all of this really mean? This whole confrontation, it's about way more than just wine or leaked text. It's actually a perfect case study of three huge and, frankly, kind of worrying trends that are shaping global politics right now. First, you see the weaponization of trade, where tariffs and economic threats are becoming the first tool out of the box instead of the last resort. Second, it shows this growing crisis of multilateralism, where the big institutions like the UN that were built to keep the peace are being actively challenged. And third, you see the rise of this personality-driven foreign policy, where a leader's personal ego can actually start to steer a country's foreign policy more than its long-term national interests.
And that leaves us with a pretty heavy question. When a single bruised ego can spark billion-dollar trade threats and shatter diplomatic trust, what happens the next time the disagreement isn't about something like wine? Are we walking into a new era where global